Today, we're talking about the extensor hallucis brevis muscle and why it's important for football players. So when you're talking about the extensor hallucis brevis in American football, you use this muscle during explosive movements, anytime you push off the ground, pivoting, adjusting the angle of your big toe. So we're talking about sprinting, acceleration. We're talking about cutting, pivoting, jumping. You're using this muscle so much in the sport of football. And because you use this muscle so often in football, it's very normal for it to have overuse problems. So that can look like the muscle tightening, that can look like trigger points, that can look like micro tears or small tears in the tissue. And the reason that's important is because if this muscle stops functioning to the best of its abilities, then other foot muscles and ankle muscles are going to have to step up to help. And when that happens, you can create muscle imbalances that can throw your whole system, whole muscular system out of whack. That's why we want to know what this muscle does. We want to know how to keep it healthy because that keeps our whole system healthy. Even these small muscles play a huge part in the whole of our body. Now, when we are talking about the extensor hallucis brevis muscle and we want to do some tissue breakdown, we want to do some self-massage, the first thing we have to do is figure out where it's at. So we know that the origin is on the superior lateral surface of the calcaneus. So let's generally say it's back here. And we know that the insertion is at the dorsum of the base of the proximal phalanx and the dorsal aponeurosis of the hallux. So let's generally say here. And so we know that the muscle is basically going like this. And so the first thing you have to do is you have to find it. So we know the general area, and now we want to put the motion going through. So let's put our left hand in that area where we know the belly should be. And then let's go ahead and put your big toe through extension. There we go. At some point, you'll feel that muscle belly popping when it is in motion. And so now that I know where it is, I'm just going to do some nice circles in that area. And then I know where it starts and I know where it ends. So I might go all the way from back here, come all the way down to the big toe, just making circles. You can go up and down. You can go left and right. All of that is great for a little tissue breakdown. And then if you really want to get some tissue moving, what I want you to do is find that muscle, make sure you're on the belly. There we go. And I want you to go ahead and sink your hand in. And then I want you to put that muscle through its action. So what that's going to look like is this. You're going to hold here with your thumb. You can use a different finger, but you're going to hold and then put that muscle through its action. See how I'm extending my big toe? I can feel that muscle popping under my fingers. And now that is a great way to break up the tissue. Once again, just feel free to move around a little bit. You might want a little lotion just to really glide along the muscle. But a little tissue breakdown goes a really long way. Now, when it comes to stretching a muscle, what you typically want to do is just put it in its opposite positioning. And so if extension is what our muscle is doing, which is the extensor hallucis brevis, then what we want to do is put our muscle through flexion. And putting the big toe through flexion is how we're going to stretch this muscle. Now, if you want to add a little stretch, you can hold the toes, make sure they're not helping. And you'll feel a little tissue pull, you'll feel a little tightness there. But that's good. We need to open up that tissue. And that's a great way to stretch the tiny little muscle that is the extensor hallucis brevis. As we look here, we can see that the origin is at the superior lateral surface of the calcaneus. We can see that the insertion point is at the dorsum of the base of the proximal phalanx and the dorsal aponeurosis of the hallux. Because of where this muscle connects, we know that its action is extending the metatarsal phalangeal joint of the hallux. The nerve we're going to talk about, if we're talking about this muscle, is the deep fibular nerve. That's the nerve that innervates this muscle. When it comes to the muscles and which muscles are working against it, which muscles are working with it, this muscle has one main antagonist, that's the flexor hallucis brevis. The flexor hallucis brevis sits on the plantar portion of the foot, and it's responsible for flexing the big toe at the MTP joint. So it's working in exact opposition to the arm muscle. When we're talking about what muscles are helping our extensor hallucis brevis move, who are its synergists, we're talking about the extensor hallucis longus, we're talking about extensor digitorum longus, we're talking about extensor digitorum brevis. And as far as the feet go, those are our synergists. One of the muscle imbalances that can occur if the extensor hallucis brevis is weak or inhibited is that the extensor hallucis longus can overcompensate. That can result in hyperextension, arch instability, and pain in your foot. Another example of muscle problems and muscle imbalances that can occur if this muscle is weak or inhibited or unstable is that because it is such a big player in the toe-off portion of walking and striding, can completely throw off your gait. It can make it so that every time you walk, your muscles aren't firing correctly. That creates a lot of problems because we're walking a lot, we're running a lot. And so keeping this muscle healthy is just as important as keeping any other muscle healthy. Well, now you know all about the extensor hallucis brevis, a small muscle in the foot that is vital to football athletes and really all athletes in general. We know how to take care of it and try to keep it as healthy and as strong as possible so that our whole body can stay as healthy and as strong as possible.